enjoy my watch videos is to make a very up-close and personal inspection of the watch. In this case in particular, this is my new Baltic Aquascaphe Mk2, and I think there are a lot of interesting aspects to this watch that I could talk you through. So let's begin. Now I'm going to give the watch a very nice little wipe down to try and get off most of the fingerprints. I'm going to do the back as well, and I'm also going to lay this microfiber down because whilst we're comfortable, we should also make sure that the watch itself is comfortable too. I did get inspired to make this video by watching another fellow YouTuber making an ASMR watch inspection, so I will link that in the description to make sure that they get credited. So let's lay down the watch comfortably. I will be using, I will be using this little tool, which is actually a watch strap changing tool, but it has these convenient little rubber tips which will allow me to tap and prod the watch whilst I'm talking about specific features. The first thing I want to talk about, or the first thing we should talk about really, is the measurements of the watch, which is very important because depending on the size of your wrist and your preferences, you might like or not like how a watch wears. So to start with, let's just place these caliper type things around the watch, and we can see that right here it's stopped at around 39.5 millimeters. That's exactly what is advertised. This is a 39.5 millimeter watch from here to here. It's the same from here to here also. Of course it will be different from the crown to the other side, but that is a less common measurement. But if we were to measure the crown diameter, including the crown, then the watch would be around 42 millimeters. The other measurement that is also quite important is the lug to lug. The lugs are these parts here and here, and the distance between this and this, the top of this to the bottom of this, is called the lug to lug, where if we measure, we should get to around 47 millimeters, which is basically the perfect size for my wrist, as it stops just with a little bit of buffer on each side. When the lugs protrude over the wrist, in my opinion, it can look a bit strange, and personally I don't really like it too much, but everyone is different, of course. There is no right or wrong measurement to a watch. Now, the other measurement that we need to make, or the other two measurements, the last two measurements we really need to make, is the thickness of the watch. This watch I expect to be around 11 millimeters from here, and I get around 10.5, which is just about right. 10.7 according to the marketing, and the measurement between the glass and the bottom, which is going to be a bit different, I'll explain later, and the measurement here is around 12 or 12.9 millimeters according to the marketing. I think that looks, to me it looks like 13, but these calipers are not exactly a scientific standard, so it probably is more accurate to 12.9. But anyway, that's the main measurements. I've already mentioned the two last measurements, and I said I was going to explain that the reason there are two measurements for the thickness is because this watch has ever so slightly raised, and it's raised from the point of the bezel to the center of the dial. The face of the watch, which is commonly called the face, but is more accurately called in the watch community the dial. This is the dial, much like a sundial. We tell the time by looking at the dial. Of course, as I'm touching the watch a lot, it's going to accumulate a few fingerprints, and I'm going to struggle to ignore them. But that's the crystal. The other thing you should know about the crystal is the fact that it's a sapphire crystal, and this means that it's a very, very tough crystal. It's on a 9 Mohs rating, and a 10 is diamond, so it should be very scratch resistant. Although after some time, even sapphire crystal can get scratched. Most often this happens because they usually apply an anti-reflective coating to the crystal in order to hide some of the reflections from the sun or a light source. The reason they do this is because sapphire crystal, whilst hard, is also very reflective, and this makes it potentially difficult to read the time because of the reflections. So watch companies typically will put some amount of anti-reflective coating, which is obviously not as hard as sapphire itself, so sometimes you can see marks on the sapphire crystal. But of course, just because sapphire is hard doesn't mean it's impenetrable to scratches. Over some time it will even accumulate scratches of its own. This watch also has a sapphire crystal around the bezel, which is this diver's bezel around here. It has these ribbed ridges so that you can grab hold of it and spin it. I won't be spinning it in this video because it's potentially loud, and if I turn it down it might still be quite sharp to hear. The purpose of this unidirectional bezel is to time things. Time things. So if I were to move the tip here towards the minute hand, which is kind of in between 55 and 56, or 55 and 57, then if I leave it here, then I know when the minute hand reaches the 15, which is currently here, but it would be around here if I moved it, it will be 15 minutes from that point. And this is a diver's watch because divers would, historically would use a diver's bezel to time how much time they should spend underneath using their oxygen tank. And some of them would be even color-coded to say after 25 minutes they must come up, or 30 minutes, etc. But that's the diver's bezel. Diver's bezel. As you can see, both the dial and the bezel have this grey colour, which is more, I would say, surprisingly unusual. Black and blue, I would say, are the two most common. Well, white as well. So let's say black, white and blue dials are usually the most common on watches. And occasionally you can see green, but grey for some reason is usually a lot less common. Over here we have two crown guards, as well as the crown in the middle. The crown allows us to pop the watch, to basically stop all the hands on the watch, which is called hacking. It allows us to wind the mechanical movement inside, which in this case is an automatic movement. It allows us to wind up the main spring inside the watch, which then allows it to run and tick, tick, tick like it is now. The screw down crown. The crown screws down because it has a 200-meter water resistance, and creating a tight seal around every entrance into the watch is important in maintaining that rating. The distance, the rough distance, even though it's gradiented, you won't really be use your fingers to grip onto the watch bezel or the watch crown, which I think is a very underrated feature because I've had watches in the past that are quite difficult to grab and move, and as well as unscrew and screw the crown. The bracelet that we have on the watch is called a beads of rice bracelet. It's called that because these links kind of resemble beads of rice. In this case, they are polished. They are very reflective. But the outside links of the bracelet are brushed, much like most of the case of the watch. Most of the case is brushed, and the case back does have some polishing around here, and you can kind of see the reflection of this red nib in the polished case back. More on the case back in a second. So, one other thing we can discuss from the bracelet perspective is that the case, this particular case, watch case, has drilled lugs. Drilled lugs allow us to use little tools like this little pokey tool, to basically stick it in there, push, and then allow us to remove the bracelet. In this case, it's not, literally in this case, it's not required. I don't need a tool like this because this bracelet actually came with quick release pins, which, as if I turn the case like that, I can see these protruding pins, which I can squeeze and remove the bracelet from the watch. Let's in fact do that. So that's the top. Let's put it down. And place it here. Let's give the watch a quick wipe after touching it so much. Ordinarily, you would not be using your fingers so much to touch the face of the watch, unless maybe it's raining and you want to remove the water from the crystal so you can read it a bit better. So, we've discussed the drilled lugs, which you can see all the way through now. Behind the watch is the case back, which we already lightly touched on. But this is a screw down case back, as you can see from these holes. You can attach specific pressure tools to push and squeeze from these little points, which allow you to then rotate and reveal the movement of the watch. In this case, I don't want to do that. But we can discuss the engraving, which is just a simple line engraving on the back of the watch. In fact, there are waves engraved. It's not simple lines, but it's creating like a little wave effect, almost like water. The text behind the watch says, "Assembled in France. Baltic Watches," which is the brand that made the watch. Stainless steel, which is the material of the case. 20 ATM, which is essentially 200 meters of water resistance. Sapphire crystal, which we already discussed. And Aquascaphe, which is the family or the model of the watch. In particular, this is the Aquascaphe Mk2. There is a first iteration of this watch, and this is now the second. There are, because of the drilled lug holes and, well, the lugs in particular, most watches will allow you to, the majority, 99% of watches, will allow you to place a different strap in here. So the whole reason you would want to remove the original bracelet or the original strap that it comes with is so that you can get your own straps that maybe you prefer and put them on the watch. I can demonstrate it here. And this strap also has quick release pins similar to the bracelet, which allow us to take one end of the lug of the spring bar, insert it, and then squeeze the top side until it clicks, and then you have a watch with a completely different watch strap. I can do the same thing on the bottom, so I will align the pin, squeeze the top one until it clicks, and now we have the same watch with a different strap. Let me know if you enjoyed this kind of video. I really enjoyed making it. I really like looking at the details of the watches, because watches are a really big hobby of mine. So being able to analyze it really closely and in a relaxing way is something that I myself would enjoy watching. So I hope that you enjoyed